And it's not very popular to question the sunscreen industry. Even ChatGPT was like, what the Stevie? You're being so uncool. But you should have seen how ChatGPT was trying to school me. Like, how dare I question? Today's video is actually in response to some of the comments I got from the video that I did, like not last video, but the video before that. The 5 things I don't do as a 53-year-old that they say that I should do. And one of those things was I don't wear sunscreen all the time. Of course, some people took that as like I don't wear it at all, but I do wear it. I just don't wear it all the time. I'm very deliberate about my sunscreen usage, as I am deliberate about any other product that I use. In this video, I want to kind of talk about why, but I also want to take on the sunscreen industry. I'm challenging them. And it's not very popular to question the sunscreen industry. Even ChatGPT was like, what the Stevie? You're being so uncool. But you should have seen how ChatGPT was trying to school me. Like, how dare I question? Like, who is challenging the sunscreen industry these days, except for like people who, you know, are very, very crunchy and, you know, only use tallow or whatever. Michael?
Yeah, babe.
People online are calling me crunchy. Do you think I'm crunchy?
Yeah.
Okay. What I really want to talk about is weighing the risks of wearing sunscreen versus not, or at least determining like how much should we use. I mean, do we really need to be applying a teaspoon of sunscreen on our face, a teaspoon on our neck? So the recommendation is basically a shot glass for your whole body. Do we need to be applying a shot glass worth of sunscreen to our bodies every 90 minutes? Would that be like a whole bottle a day? Like, who could really afford that? I came back from the cruise and I'm not feeling well, so it's been kind of hard getting this video out because, first of all, I am so, I got like 4,000 followers, like almost in the last couple weeks, and I'm so thrilled that you're here, and I have so much gratitude. I have this great sense of responsibility that it's almost overwhelming. So I really want to do right by you. I want to keep it real, keep it honest, and do my research. So it took me a while to kind of research everything that I wanted to research in regards to this video. And I'm under the weather because I was on a cruise ship for a week, which is basically a petri dish. And now I have this thing that won't go away. I'm thinking it might be COVID. It feels like COVID. It feels like the last time I had it. So we have this deceptive tobacco company style marketing when it comes to everything, including sunscreen, where they have lobbyists and they cherry pick data. There's lots of social pressure out there as well. Lots of social pressure to believe one thing versus another, and it's usually based on ideology and group inclusiveness. And that division keeps us in a us versus them sort of narrative, which keeps us from sharing really good information. And it makes us more vulnerable to marketing and manipulation. This kind of marketing leverages fear and it may exaggerate risks. It also plays on human desires, like our desire for status or a certain lifestyle. And it creates social pressure as well that can be kind of aggressive at times, as like you might notice, like if you're ever like on Instagram or even here on YouTube and in the comment section, people just fight over the craziest things. Someone might say they use tallow instead of sunscreen, and the next thing you know, someone's yelling at them and calling them a conspiracy theorist, and or another person might, say they slather on sunscreen and they're called something else. So I don't want you to think that I think that sunscreen is totally bad, because I don't. I actually think sunscreen is an amazing invention. But there are pros and cons which change given the situation, given, your life, your lifestyle, and whatever it is that you're doing. Basically, I feel that moderation is the key, but you might feel different, and that's okay. But if you do, I would love to hear your whys. I'm going to tell you how I navigate the confusion in hopes that maybe it might help you, or maybe it might open up conversation, which I think is so important. I want to do anything that I can do to create a bridge between people, because this division that we're dealing with sucks and it's not helpful, and it makes us vulnerable for manipulation, and we need to get together. We need to be talking. We need to be unified. Also, stay tuned to the very end, because I'm also going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to be doing my first giveaway. In gratitude, I'm receiving my first 5,000 subscribers, and not all 5,000 is here yet, but I have faith that you're on your way. So stay tuned to the end and I will give you the details. I'm not a scientist, although I try to act like one sometimes, but I'm not a scientist of any kind. I'm just extremely curious, and I love to learn about things and do deep dives, go down rabbit holes. I'm literally a lot like Alice in Wonderland. I am. I'm just here as a friend sharing my experience-based findings. I will link everything below, like everything that I looked at in terms of studies and stuff. I'll link that below in the description box so that you can, peruse through all of that yourself and come to your own conclusions. I think it's really important for women as well as men to share their wisdom and experiences and observations with one another outside of social media, away from marketing, politics, cancel culture, and all the forces that coalesce to ensure that we are so dazed and confused, divided, mistrustful of each other, and afraid to think and learn outside of the box, out of fear of being politicized, dehumanized, categorized, and basically just attacked. And I know that this is social media. YouTube is social media. We are in social media. Let's pretend that we aren't. Let's pretend that this is an actual physical third space, where we listen to each other without prejudice, where we build trust and can be enriched by our differences instead of offended. We can be honest here, and that honesty can be met with kindness, right? Well, at least that is my dream, and I would love to see that happen right here. So let's make the comments section our town hall, because I love the energy that it's giving. So the question, do I use sunscreen? Yes, I do. In fact, I've used it religiously on my face all my life, since my mom put it on me when I was a baby. It was Coppertone. I love the smell of Coppertone. And I never stopped putting sunscreen on my face. No, when I remember being in high school, I don't think I put sunscreen on. I don't actually think I did. So maybe not in high school, not when I was at school. But if I went to the beach or if I went for a long walk or something like that, I would wear sunscreen. But I didn't put sunscreen all over my body, and I have the sunspots and the actinic keratoses and bumps and stuff to show for it. This video is actually going to be a DIY. I was going to do that today, where I show you how I make different ointments and things to kind of solve some of these problems that are due to sun damage. And I was going to share my DIY bug repellent and all of that. But what happened was I just started doing research and also reading the comments, and I realized that I still needed, that I wanted to talk a little bit about sunscreen and sun damage before I actually got into the DIY. This was actually going to be all one video, but it's going to be long, so I'm making it 2 videos. So on Monday, I'm going to talk about the DIY. So we know that, sun does cause DNA damage, and it does increase the incidence of cancer, skin cancer. But one of the questions that I have is, does sun exposure decrease your longevity? Because maybe not so much. Like farmers and agricultural workers, these are people who spend a ton of time out in the sun. They cover themselves with clothes and hats and stuff, but they do get tans. They do develop tans, but they're not dying from it. In fact, that population has a lower incidence of skin cancer, but they do have higher rates of other kinds of cancers that are associated with pesticides and chemicals and all that kind of stuff. Also, there is a Swedish study. It was a big study of 30,000 women. It was a Harvard study, and it showed that those who sunbathed, who got tans, like the sun worshippers, tend to live longer. They tend to live longer by 7 months to 2 years. And one of the reasons why the sun worshippers were living longer is because they had less heart disease. And heart disease is the #1 cause of death. So I have a suspicion that a base tan protects us more than we think it does, because it allows vitamin D to be absorbed, but I don't think that's just the only mechanism. I think there are probably other things. Like, the body is complex, great at adapting to stressors. And sometimes those stressors actually make us stronger. So there might be a lot of things that are happening, systemic things. We go into ChatGPT and we ask it, what is the sun protection of the melanin of tanned skin? And it will say, the science is clear, it's like 2 SPF. And then when I ask it, show me the science, and then it comes back, it says, the science is clear, and then it actually gives me a whole lot of other irrelevant information. And it's almost like arguing with a zealot. This is ChatGPT. So I finally found the study that it's referring to that is so clear. And let me tell you about it. It is a 1998 study. The study was done, 27 years ago in England. And the cohort was 16 white fellows, 16 white men. And these guys agreed to expose their white butts to tanning beds for 2 weeks, just regularly. And as they built up a tan, the scientists somehow measured how much their tolerance to sun changed. And the result was, they believed that a tan gives you a SPF of 2. And now everybody is saying the science is clear on this. Like there's been tons of studies done, but there really hasn't been. And subsequent studies are showing that different areas of our bodies tan at different rates. So that actually really conflates the original study. And I I don't know, there's just a lot of certainty out there, but it just doesn't feel like due diligence was actually done. Then I have another question, and that is, why is it that white people have a 1 in 33 risk of developing melanoma? Hispanics have a 1 in 200 risk of developing melanoma, and Black people have a 1 in 1,000 risk of developing melanoma. I believe the melanin is doing a lot more work than we give it credit for. Who is going to study this when there's no money to be made on your body's natural defense system? Now, I do want to point out something that I stumbled upon in my research that I think is really, really important. And that is that while Black people are far less likely to get melanoma, if they do get melanoma, they are far more likely to die from it. So it's like the 5-year survival rate for a white person is like 99%. Yes, if you catch melanoma early, you have a huge survival rate. It is not as scary as you think. You just need to catch it early. You don't need to be afraid to go to the dermatologist and whatever and check it. If you're a Black person, though, your 5-year survival rate is only 66%. That's a huge difference. And part of the reason for that is because it's not as easily detected. Maybe doctors aren't looking for it. Maybe you're not looking for it. Please pay attention to changes in your skin, no matter your shade of brown, no matter what. Pay attention to your skin and make the doctors pay attention to you. How do I determine how much sunscreen I should use, when I should use it, if I should use it, when I should not use it? So I mentioned before that I do not like to spend unnecessary amounts of money on products. I like to keep my toxicity levels low. I mean, statistically, women tend to layer on tons and tons of products, and toxic ingredients can add up, even if like one ingredient doesn't, go beyond any threshold. When you start adding a bunch of ingredients, they start adding up. And then there's also ingredients, like even in natural products, that aren't actually ingredients. They're not listed as ingredients, but they develop, like benzene. They develop as a result of the manufacturing, of the way it's produced, the way the product is produced, just chemical reactions. So my strategy is to just use less. I don't even always go with natural products. I might choose a more effective product versus a natural product, just because I want results. I want it to work, but I will use less. And then we don't always know, because of all the green marketing, the greenwashing. We don't really know how clean that product really is. So I have a general policy when it comes to products to use less, when it comes to sunscreen, to use less and rely a little bit more on reusable sun protections like hats and scarves and clothing, and maybe even a base tan. And I take a more philosophical approach, if you will, rather than a scientific one. And that is because the science isn't all there. I know it's really good to make decisions based only on what you know, but it gets complicated when there's a bias towards funding certain information, but not other. And that kind of creates a lie of omission, if you will. You have to take another approach, because the evidence-based approach is not complete. And it's not just because the science isn't all there. I don't have access to it in terms of my ability to understand it all or to pay for it, because a lot of it is behind a paywall, or I just don't have the time and energy. I do put some time and energy towards it, but I don't have the time of a scientist. I'm not getting paid for it. I don't, and even if I were, I would be focusing on one thing, one very, very specific thing, very niched. And it's nice to be able to rely on think tanks like the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, but yes, there is a potential for them to be compromised as well. I hear that there's this organic lobby, like a lobby that supports organic stuff. I don't know what that is. But, once you get special interests involved and then there's money thrown at it, things get skewed, right? So one of the things that I do in order to determine like how to make a decision about how much sunscreen I should use, when I should use it, and all that kind of stuff, what I should buy, is I consider my priorities. This is a philosophical approach. I consider my priorities and I create a set of questions, 3 questions. It's always 3. 3 is such a good number. And try to answer these questions that pertain to these priorities. I'll ask myself questions like, these are my questions. What are my 3 top priorities when it comes to sun protection? Well, my number 1 top priority is longevity. I just don't want to die. I don't want to die early. My number 2 priority is I want to avoid big medicine. I just don't want to get caught in the system. Not yet, not now. And number 3 is I want to avoid spending money that I don't need. This is important to me because it means freedom. It means that I could do these videos. Like if I'm spending a ton of money on products and clothes and all kinds of stuff, then I would actually have to be working right now. And I wouldn't be able to do these videos. And this is what I love to do. When I say avoid spending money, what I really mean, what I'm really concerned about is the quality of my life. I want to be financially intentional so that I can have a certain quality of life, so I can do what I want to do. I also consider, and I think this is important, I consider what is it that I want? What do I want to do? What feels good? What feels good to me, especially on the onset of spring, is I want to lay out in the sun for like 10 minutes a day. That feels so good, especially coming out of winter. I want to have a little bit of a tan. So this is important because this is where my bias lies. It is seated in my desires. It is seated in the things that I want to do that make me happy. For instance, I like coffee. I like my coffee. So my bias might be to look for studies to support my coffee addiction. I'm going to ignore the studies that say coffee is bad for me. I'm going to make excuses, give reasons why I ignore it. I'm going to look for the science that supports coffee drinking, as well as like the science that supports wine drinking and all of those fun things. So now that I have these questions, I know what evidence to focus on, what science to focus on. Because I'm interested in longevity, I'm going to look for longitudinal studies. So maybe like learning about how exactly sunlight, sun rays, exactly UVA damages DNA. Instead of looking at that, I'm actually going to look at like the Swedish study or the study of the farmers and the agricultural workers. I'm gonna look to see if there's any impact on longevity. And if there isn't any obvious impact on longevity, I'm going to assume that it's insignificant to some degree. So what I really care about is this question: how will sunscreen impact longevity? And statistically, not all that much, probably. But I understand now also that exposure to sun and its skin-damaging rays also contributes to overall longevity as well. Probably in more ways than we know, because we are always discovering new biological mechanisms. So the next question is, how can I avoid big medicine? Because I have a core belief, based on only experiential evidence, that once you get into the clutches of big pharma, it's hard to get out. Once it has you as a customer, it does not want to lose you. And while it has an incentive to keep you alive, it has no incentive to keep you happy. Big pharma and big ag have a lot in common. So I do have my ways of lowering some of the risks that are associated with sun exposure, which I will share in my next video, where I talk about DIY skincare, like the frugal supplements that I take and other kinds of treatment that are evidence-based can lower your risk of getting cancer. I'm also concerned about budget so that I have more freedom. And so I just use less product. Like, I figure out how to get more benefit out of a product. So one way is higher SPF. If you have a higher SPF, you actually do not need to use as much and it will last longer on your body. So one of the reasons why they recommend SPF 50 is because usually people don't use enough sunscreen. In order to get more protection, a higher SPF helps. But you can actually, all you really need is a SPF 15, but you got to use a lot of product. And of course, clothes and hats and shade, they're free. They're not free, but they're reusable. Like shade is free. Clothes and hats are reusable. And the fact that I want to lay in the sun 10 minutes a day in spring and summer is also going to affect my decision. So yeah, like I'm going to choose to believe that the melanin that I develop from a base tan is going to protect me more than the evidence says, even though I really don't have any evidence of that at all. I just have lack of evidence, or I just have like a stupidly small study that, and then I have like the public attitude that yes, the science is clear when it really isn't. And that really annoys me, but I really do not have evidence. But I will let my desire to be in the sun 10 minutes a day rule me. I'm gonna go with that bias that some of the science isn't there because it's hard to get funding for science that is not a moneymaker or could cause public confusion or affect public health. Or maybe it's just unethical. Like exposing subjects to the elements to see if it kills them or not is kind of unethical, right? And there's misinformation out there too. For instance, the whole idea, like lots of people believe this, that sunscreen only lasts on your skin for 2 hours, maybe 90 minutes or 2 hours. This is not true. Like it might be true in certain situations, but not in all situations. So you can get ready for work, put sunscreen put sunscreen on your face, let it dry down a bit, put on your makeup, go to work, and if you get through the day without sweating or crying, you will likely still have an effective amount of sunscreen on your face 8 hours later. But if you go to the beach and you put sunscreen on just before you go out into the ocean, just before you roll around in the sand or whatever, a good bit of that is actually going to wear away right from the get-go, and you're definitely not going to have a full 8 hours of wear with it. So yeah, you got to be really careful. Your sunscreen isn't going to last very long. At the beach, when I was in the Caribbean, I made sure to wear sunglasses and a hat, and I did pretty well. Like I did get tan, but I didn't get burned anywhere, so it turned out really well. Also, I'm a woodland creature, and the bright sun, it's hard to handle. Even when I go to the beaches out here, it's just so intense in the summer. I only go like in October or spring. So there are some content creators and dermatologists, like, what do you call them? Skinfluencers, like Dr. Dre, like Shireen Idris, Cassandra Banks is another one. They would have us applying about a teaspoon of sunscreen to our face every couple of hours. Apply it all over our bodies too, if they could. And even if we were just walking to our car or hanging out in the office, but who can afford that? Because that equals, I guess, a shot glass worth of sunscreen. That's a lot of sunscreen. Like you would go through a whole bottle like in a day. Who can afford that? I know who can afford it. Influencers can afford it because they get the free product. But I'm not questioning the expertise of dermatologists, not at all, because who am I to question that? But I am considering their bias. Have you heard the quote from Maslow? Or if the only tool you have is a hammer, you're going to treat all your problems like a nail. So dermatologists are very focused on skin. They see all the skin related tragedies, all like they hear all the stories. Their whole life is about what can go wrong with the skin. And this skews their perspective. They are less likely to take a holistic approach, and they're more likely to like upplay the risks of skin cancer and all of that, and downplay the risk of other diseases that may be caused from, maybe due to the avoidance of sun. And they're also more likely to downplay the risk of endocrine disrupting ingredients like oxybenzone and octinoxate, I don't know how to say actinoxate, in chemical sunscreens, which have the potential to cause infertility and maybe metabolical fertility and metabolic disease, or other potentially cancer-causing ingredients or ingredients that cause inflammation, cell damage, like the zinc, like the nanoparticles in physical sunscreens. They may have an impact on cells. And they might be aware of those things, but they're going to downplay them because they're not part of their clinical experience. These aren't the stories that they see every day. They see stories of skin cancer and sun damage. For a dermatologist, the nail, the hammer, it's all skin. And they might argue the toxicity levels of some of these ingredients that I mentioned, they're not very high, not in each product, but after all, the animals and the animal studies were exposed to much higher amounts. It's just terrible. But sunscreen isn't the only product that we use. Like the average woman uses like 3 products on her face, and many more use a lot more. Put on lotion, plastics and chemicals in our clothing. It's in our cleaning products. It's in our detergent. It's everywhere. And also these chemicals, they get into our environment. They get into our water systems, and everybody's impacted by them. So I feel that it's really important to take an informed as you can be, holistic approach when it comes to consumption of products. Just don't use a lot of it. And, protect yourself in other non-toxic, budget-friendly ways, because we're never going to get absolute certainty. And I realize that in this video, I'm probably creating more questions for you than answers, which isn't so terrible because it will pique your curiosity. And curiosity is a wonderful thing. Certainty is where ever-changing truth goes to die. And it's also how we become so divided. We often self-divide in pursuit of a sense of certainty. We want to be convinced that we are in a group, we are in the group with all the answers. And when people challenge that certainty that we feel within this group, we make them the enemy, we radicalize them, we demonize them. And I'm sure, about now, some of you are doing this to me. I'm sure I'm going to lose a few subscribers over this, but that's okay because that will, there will be less tension here if that's the case. We got to prune the bush. But I personally believe that everybody holds a piece of the truth, and like a puzzle piece, and we need to work together to solve the bigger puzzle. Because what is it? Together are better, or divided we fall. Like together we, I don't know, but you know how that works. So here's some more food for thought. Did you know that sunscreen is a $15 billion industry? Just sunscreen alone, only sunscreen. And it is expected to go up to $24 billion in 10 more years. And while this is happening, there has been a decline in skin cancer death, which is excellent, but that's mostly due to skin cancer treatments, early detection, immunotherapy. Since the 70s, skin cancer rates have increased. Even though back in the 70s, we weren't using sunscreen. What else were we doing in the 70s? We were basting our bodies with baby oil and iodine and going out in the sun, some of us with aluminum sheets and basically roasting like a turkey. And I'm sure many of us who went through that by now, we definitely have basal cell carcinomas. I'm sure the non-melanoma cancers like basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell, they're very slow growing. The damage that we were doing in the 70s and 80s might not actually be realized or be diagnosed, until like 30, 40 years later. So one of the reasons why cancer rates might have increased is because we are realizing only now the damage that was done in the 70s, in the 80s. There's a few other reasons. People live longer, and there's better detection and tanning beds. So younger women are more likely to, like women between a certain age, I can't remember, are more likely to be diagnosed with melanoma than older people because of tanning salons. Do you see that I'm not trying to create an argument that only supports sunscreen or only supports not using sunscreen? I'm trying to look at all the stuff. I'm trying to play devil's advocate. And unfortunately, there's a little incentive to fund studies that don't sell products. I mentioned this before, or that may confuse the public. It's like you can't go around telling everybody that a base tan is going to protect them from sun damage, because some people are just going to take it too far. You tell someone that drinking wine creates stress that actually helps reset some of your cells, and next thing you know, they're going to be drinking like bottles and bottles and bottles of wine. It doesn't like always work out the best for public health. So it's one reason why they might not fund these studies. So questions like, how much protection versus damage does a base tan provide? That is very unlikely to be funded. And what is my response to all this uncertainty? Well, let's start with what I think we know. Sun exposure does lead to more skin cancers. That's clear. But it doesn't seem to decrease longevity in the population. So I take the middle path, moderation, the balanced approach. Sunscreen and a hat when I'm out at the beach or at the farmer's market, or if I'm going to be at a festival or something. But at the same time, I might go out in the sun for controlled amounts of time, like 10 minutes a day, to develop a base tan, because I feel, and I want to feel, that that's going to actually provide me some protection. It's a natural adaptation, and I'm going to take advantage of it in lieu of taking on an extra toxicity load. And then when I'm around the house or I'm out in the garden when it's not very sunny, I might use like some coconut oil, which has an SPF of like 4 or more. And I will go out and get my vitamin D. Lots of playing in the yard, hula hooping, playing with my dogs, dancing, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go out and get it because I know that is good for my cardiovascular health and my bone health, because vitamin D is so necessary, especially for us women of a certain age. So basically, I'm just going to enjoy my life. So now for the giveaway. This is going to be so good. Okay, so if you don't know, my husband is a neuroscientist. This is kind of, he rubs off on me. This is why I'm a little nerdy. He's a neuroscientist by day, but a woodworker by night. No, no, that's not what I mean. Stop it. Stop it. Oh God, I'm coughing. What I mean is that after work, he spends hours in the wood shop, turning wood, making beautiful things like bowls and plates and ornaments. And he's so meticulous and mathematical and creative that he's like producing some really unique ornaments with interesting shapes and interesting movements. It's a freaking hurricane. What's going on outside? So to show our appreciation, all of us here, to the first 5,000 subscribers to this channel, we are going to give away an ornament to those in the US and Canada, I'm so sorry that if you're not in the US and Canada, we at this time we can't ship out of North America. If I do pull your name, I'll do something special for you too. But so I'm sorry, I can't include you. Anyway, so really all you have to do to be part of this giveaway is be a subscriber. So if you're already subscribed, you don't have to do anything. But if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. So I'm not sure what kind of ornament it's going to be, but this is an example of the ornaments he makes. Isn't that just gorgeous? And he does this he uses mathematical knowledge to make it go, just to kind of make it bob around, and it's so cool. Isn't that beautiful? That's it for today. So make sure to stay tuned. Monday I'm going to be doing that DIY video, and where I show you how I make a vitamin C serum, a very simple vitamin C serum. So the giveaway is going to be open for 2 weeks, and then I will close it, and then I will announce the winners. And the winner will have a beautiful, gorgeous, handmade heirloom ornament. Don't know if it will look like that. It'll probably look different because he's been working on some really, really unique techniques. So I can't wait. Heirloom ornament just in time for the holidays. I think they're so wonderful. All right. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't ramble on about things that you don't care about. Let me know in the comments if this was just too much of a deep dive, or maybe just too much of me, or self-indulgent, or I don't know. Let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. And don't forget, if you made it this far, give me a like. It will help build this community. The more people like you who like this video will bring more people like you and me, and we'll just be together forever and ever, like Ramalama Lama 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 Ding Dong.
I'm just a girl, a wonderful girl, I'm the sweetest one in town. Can search for miles around, and no one like me can be found. I've got a smile, a wonderful smile, and a certain